All right, so on the call today, we have Marc Davison, who I connected with Marc early 2019, and I had been searching for marketing, kind of a plug and play marketing service, and I was scouring around and I stumbled to 1000 Watt, and I plugged in my information on their website, got a quick response from Marc, who's Chief Creative Officer, and made a connection that we spent like 30 or 45 minutes on the phone together one evening and got off topic from what I was originally calling about. And I was inspired and moved with my conversation with Marc because he really hit home and reinforced the ideology that I've always practiced, which is a more meaningful touch that we have in the residential market with our clients, as opposed to just blasting them and just being undiscovered in their inbox. And so after that, I was compelled to try and get Marc on here to share wisdom with us and all things residential real estate. So for those of you who don't know, 1000 Watt is, I'd say, the most notable marketing and branding company in residential real estate space. And their work is very impressive, and they're located right here in Portland. And so with all that said, I'll turn it over, and I have questions for Marc, and we can just talk. But Marc, thanks for being here. Tell us what's up. How are you doing besides what you already shared?
Well, delighted to be here. I'm in great spirits despite all that's going on around us. I have my youngest son preparing to go to the Netherlands for college, and every day we're on pins and needles hoping that they will let him in. He's got a student visa. He was there in February. We can't go, so I can't be part of that parent rite of passage, taking him to school, which is a real bummer.
Is he in the condo with you?
He lives here with us. We have 4 kids. He's the youngest, the surprise baby. So we've had a lot of years of just my wife and I and him. So he's really a very, we're close-knit, the 3 of us. It's going to be interesting.
Did your kids grow up in Portland?
No, we're from New York City. And we moved here 10 years ago.
Got it.
And so, yeah, everything's great. Business is good. It's challenging. We're a creative agency. It's been hard to recreate that sort of magic chemistry that we have when we're together. Just imagine, musicians trying to write and jam when they're not in the same room. Mm-hmm. The same for us. Every project we do, we create teams. I lead those teams, but it's usually a writer, a strategist, a project manager, at least 1, if not 2 designers, a creative director, and myself. And we break apart these puzzles and put them back together. So learning how to do it through Zoom and staring into Zoom all day, it's tiring, but it's working. So yeah. I'm thrilled. And real estate creating challenges, and we're problem solvers. That's what design is. Design solves a problem of making something unattractive, attractive, and appealing. Words solve problems. They explain things that otherwise seem complicated and confusing. And so we as an agency need challenges to do our thing. You guys should be able to relate to that, because no single transaction is exactly identical. It's all different. Every one of them is a challenge. And at the end of the day, what you do is solve problems for people. And so I think that we can relate to each other with that sort of common understanding of what we do.
Marc, who are the clients that you work with, and you're nationally or you globally? Tell me who your clients are. Residential real estate brokerages, lenders, who are you working with?
It's anything that falls into a category of residential, we do. If it's outside of real estate, we don't touch it, just because why bother? There's probably agencies within those verticals that understand the vertical better than we do. We were Dot Loop's branding agency early on, came up with their whole big people work campaign that really blew that company up and ultimately got them purchased by Zillow. So that got us contracts with Zillow. We've done work for them. We work with Home Point, huge multi-billion-dollar cap lending company. We've done work for Inman over the years, brokerages. We are Hassan's agency of record as of last year, and there's an entirely new campaign that is about to launch for them here locally, completely reshaping the way the company looks and sounds. And I mean, and then nationally, like, you know, pretty popular brokerages around the country, especially if you're in those markets, you would know who they are. And also all the way down to single agents and small teams. We have programs and projects and products for everybody. But it does take a certain type of individual to relinquish control to an agency, to let us, in the same way you would relinquish control to an agent to run your transaction, you have to be, as a real estate entity, of the mindset that you're handing this over to people who understand what you need, and what they give you is their best recommendation. So that's not a widely spread characteristic in real estate. Agents are typically taught to be their marketing person, to be their transaction person, to be their branding person, to be their social media person. Brokerages tend to want to keep everything in-house and build things based on groupthink. When we do find the right counterpart, the engagement is amazing because the collaboration is just, it yields such cool work. Our website, if you guys go to 1000watt.net, you'll see case studies and just a wide array of clientele that agents, teams, brokers, title companies, mortgage companies, portals.
I actually had I had a page up that I want to share that I thought was pretty powerful. Let me pull it up real quick.
Are you guys familiar with the broker portal project or HomeSnap?
Yes.
So they just hired us because they have, after many years, realized that people just don't get it. They don't understand what they do, and they're not appreciative of what they've brought to the table. They can't get the messaging right.
Who can't? HomeSnap, or who can't get the messaging right?
HomeSnap and /BPP. They just can't. They're not as widely adopted as they should be. And they don't realize. And it was interesting talking to them where their minds go versus where their minds need to go to figure out the problem. So these are wonderful projects, just helping really good entities just get clear.
And so your industry research goes all the way down to the client agent experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, we will, on projects that call for it, we will interview right down to the consumer. We've done a lot of consumer. So that's my background. Just so you guys know, I came up out of New York City through New York City ad agencies. That's where I come from. The big agency world, Young and Rubicam. You don't really learn this in school, but you learn this at the agency level, how to think through problem solving. And to think through problem solving and messaging, you have to go directly to the person you're connecting with to understand what is it that they want and they need to hear, and then deliver that through your messaging. So rather than you telling them what you want them to know, you need to reinforce what they believe and what they want to know. As an experienced parent, you realize that it's really the same thing. A successful relationship with a child requires a lot of listening and understanding of what makes that child. I have 4 kids. Each kid needed a different sort of sense of approach or messaging or parenting. It's the same with the marketplace. So when you have a brand or a company or a product and it's relating to its audience on a very intimate level, it's through that intimate relationship where you build incredible bonds. It's why I said I live above the REI building. Every single day there's a line around the block of people going to REI. And the reason why is REI has created a real emotional, intimate bond with its customer base. They relate to the same things. They believe in the same things. And it's from that sense of belief that you create great messaging and marketing. So in order for us to understand what that is, we had to go to the real estate customer thousands and thousands of times. So it's really easy for me to answer a lot of questions or deal with a lot of issues based upon what I know the consumer wants.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is the consumer's expectation for their real estate agent these days? I mean, just like you said earlier, our role has expanded from just being a deal maker and negotiator to a marketer, to a social media expert, to negotiation expert, and all of the above. So, can you speak to us about what the client wants these days and what their expectations are?
I'm certain I can, but I'm pretty certain that every one of you on this call could do the same thing. If you just stop being a realtor for a second and put yourself in the customer's shoes, because you're a customer. Just by show of hands, how many of you own a home? Okay. Are you concerned about the value of your home right now?
Curious.
Well, because you're a realtor, so you know where it's going. But if you take that realtor hat off for a second, you or me, and you're not a realtor. You don't have access to market data. You don't have access to historic data that shows trends. And this is what it takes really to strip out what you think you know and get into their shoes. But they, right now, and it was different a few months ago, but now they're concerned about their values. Is it going to stay stable? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? How is that going to impact them? Are mortgage rates going to stay the same? Are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? All the way to, is my place, now that I'm at home, and home has become so much more important these days than ever in terms of how we think about home. We're working from home, we're living from home. Is my space big enough? Is my space too big? It's all those things that I'm certain you think about, or at least you have those conversations with every day with your customer base.
And we've been, going through COVID together, and there's absolutely no shortage of reasons to reach out to the clients for exactly the reasons why you're mentioning. We've been talking about that quite a bit. And everybody is just so curious about where is their real estate right now, just like you were saying.
So I think on that note, responding to, I always go back to like these simple tenets of good branding and good marketing, which is to say the things that people are thinking, and that makes you seem very, very perceptive, and it makes you more, it makes you matter more to them. It's just like any relationship you have with anybody. The more perceptive a friend or a loved one is to your needs, the more tightly woven that relationship is going to be for you. You appreciate them. So understanding what they want to hear from you and what they want to talk about can come one of two ways. You either have a gut instinct and know, or you can ask. Bear in mind, and this is so often not discussed in the confines of marketing within real estate, but marketing is inbound intelligence. It is getting insight from the marketplace. So that's the research you do. It's asking questions and learning. What does the marketplace want? That's marketing. The result of that, the outgoing, that's not really marketing, that's communication. or positioning or branding or advertising. So you could post in Facebook, like, what's your number one concern right now? Just, you can ask the marketplace a question, get conversation going around that, and then respond to it. The other side of this coin is velocity. How often do you reach out? I'm a big proponent of less is more. And I am very anti more is more.
Do you remember the story you shared with me about your experience?
No.
And,
Oh, sorry.
all right.
Maybe
All right.
have a good memory though, if you can trigger.
Well, here are the nuts and bolts of it. I think you had a previous real estate relationship with somebody who was perfectly fine, and closed a deal with them, and then they immediately threw you into their auto marketing spray and pray. And then you had another person who you did a deal with, and they brought the value in a more intellectual, savvy way and negotiated better for you and did not put you in the spray and pray category, and that locked that relationship in for you.
It's without getting overly detailed, the relationship that a consumer has with a real estate agent is, first and foremost, it's transactional. It's no different than the relationship you have with your dentist or your whatever doctor. You go to that person because it's transactional. If it crosses over the line into friendship, that's oftentimes happens and it's great. But it's important to never forget that the value of that relationship was built off of this transactional moment in time. And what I've noticed about agents, that once the transaction is over, in this desperate need to stay connected, they begin to move beyond the friendship and begin to move beyond the transactional relationship and start conversing around things that are not within context. There are companies like Happy Grasshopper and others that actually create content for agents that try to create conversation around anything with the consumer, but it's way out of context. Imagine getting marketing like that or advertising like that from a priest or a rabbi or a doctor or a lawyer. Like, why is my doctor sending me an email about a movie he saw last week? It just seems weird. And the more of that you get, the more it comes across as feeling desperate. And I'm using now words I've heard from consumers, that it's desperate. The agents lost their sense of who I am and what I need from them. And that is part of what, there's a statistic that NAR tends to publish, which vacillates between 11 and 14%, which reflects that the return usage of a consumer back to an agent after they've used them one time prior. So while there's like an 89% positivity ranking among consumers with regard to the agents they've used, only 11 or 14% of them return to that agent over time. So what breaks down that relationship? I think it's a velocity of unnecessary, pointless communication that becomes unsubscribed to or just ignored and deleted. Conversely, you send one really good on context piece of marketing or content. The agent that I buy a lot of real estate. I like to buy and sell property. And I found a guy here in Portland who I've done about 8 or 9 deals with. And once a month, I get a video from him. It's about 60 seconds to 2 minutes. And it's an intellectual / personal. It's very good at it. He's just natural. And he just tells me what's going on with the market and what I need to know about. I mean, that's what our relationship is mostly. We're friends now, but like I still depend on his knowledge around real estate, and I value that tremendously. There's nobody that can displace him from me at this point. So I think less is more, and nailing what will bring value.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get concerned because of exactly what you mentioned earlier. We are transactional. We're only needed so often from one particular person. But it's such a competitive marketplace out there. We're gunning for their referrals, right? And everybody seems to have such a short attention span. And we're told that we have to stay in their face, right? So that's why I think we're lured by that type of velocity, as you put it.
This is the question I have. Who tells real estate that it's typically vendors of marketing products?
Wait, what was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Like who are these entities that tell you you need to stay in the consumer's face?
Oh yeah, good question.
It's vendors it's social media vendors. It's marketing product vendors. They're the one, they're selling a product. And yeah, it sounds good, but you know what? So much of, and maybe you guys feel this too, so many agents I talk to don't feel that's right in their gut. And they're also, it's daunting. As part of your daily work to also have to think about how do I constantly stay in front of people and stay in their face and be on social and be on every single social platform, like it's daunting. It's scary. I don't do it. I'm not on anything. I blog every once in a while. Sometimes I tweet and then I can go for years without tweeting. I only publish what I have if I have something important to say that I think brings value to people. And that's, none of you guys have access to an ongoing ad agency that can do for you what like Wyden Kennedy does for Nike. So you got to rely on your own self to do all this. And when you add that to the complicated jobs you already have, it becomes a major challenge. So yes, referrals is a big key thing. I do think that a home is an investment, just like buying stock, and having an update from your agent every quarter has always been up until now for me, just a really good sort of line drawn in the sand as to what a bare minimum an agent can send. Just let me know how my investment is doing quarter to quarter. I think now that COVID's here, real-time information and real-time data is more important, but why wait a quarter and who cares what happened last quarter? Like every quarter is its own reality now. I think just being more current. If there are shifts in the marketplace, as soon as you feel a shift, as soon as you sense a shift, write about it, communicate about it. Also, I'll let you guys in on something. Your website has information locked inside of it that can tell you lots of things about what people want. It's that whole data conversation that has been taking place in real estate for the last 5 years, but it shouldn't be that overwhelming. If you look at your website on any given, at the end of a week or the beginning of a new week, and just look at like what homes in my market got the most visits or the most views, what communities are getting the most views, what price ranges are getting the most views. Well, that is telling you what your marketplace has shown interest in. And maybe pre-COVID, there was a lot more traffic in the $1 to $3 million price range, but now you're seeing a shift in the $400 to $700 price range. That's information. These are trends that are happening that are maybe forecasting what kind of sales and transactions are going to take place over the next couple of weeks, if not months. There's value there in communicating what you're seeing in the market. It's what I love about my financial advisor. I'm always getting an update from him as to what he's seeing, not every day, but when there's a shift that I need to know about, he'll let me know. And I think these simple little touches are really critical.
I agree, and we're not lacking for content at all right now. Whether it's informative market data or good news or any of the above. So we talk about that every week, getting our information and our content out. What, going up to like the 30,000 foot view, are you seeing any structural shifts in the residential real estate space, shifts in agency relationships or consolidation in the industry, bundling? Like what's going on? Is there anything coming, lurking that we're not seeing, or where are we going?
I think we're probably seeing the same thing. You definitely have consolidation. Not too long ago in New York, Hagstette Real Estate acquired or merged with Brown Harris Stevens. It's a big deal. Two powerful independent real estate companies with two powerful leadership groups and very different cultures have come together to form a stronger union. What's the game plan there? Is it to ultimately combat a Compass or combat better Berkshire Hathaway, or is it to create a more powerful entity to sell to Berkshire Hathaway? Don't know, but like I think about those two strategies. There's other talks of mergers and acquisitions taking place. You see Compass expanding. I also, at the other end of it, the emergence of powerful teams. The team reality within the brokerage is a wave, and it's going to continue. Having worked with lots of teams over the last year or two, they operate with a completely different mindset than a brokerage. And so on many levels. And I see the emergence of the team within a brokerage becoming huge, but also insofar as those teams are splintering off and becoming mini brokerages of their own. So they're leaving the brokerage and becoming independent. We work with a company. So I don't know, last year we were hired by a small team in Houston to build out their branding. They were called the Michael Silva team. And this is interesting. They're called the Michael Silva team. I got a call from Beth Silva and Ashley and Kate, 3 women who did all the negotiation with me, talked about the project, and then at the end wanted me to speak with Michael just to get one last sense of the company before we take them on. And I spoke to Michael, and it just dawned on me that calling them the Michael Silva team made no sense. Yeah, he's sort of like the rainmaker, but this company is run by women, and it felt wrong. And I offered that up in the conversation because if they weren't going to, I wanted to see how they would take to that way of thinking. If they took positively to it, it would be a sign that they'd be a good client to work with. If they took negatively to it, would be a sign that I don't think we're going to get along that well because they're not seeing the obvious. So how am I going to sell them my work? Well, you know, when I brought that up to Michael, he said, you know what, you're right. We got to change the name, add that to the contract. And so as a result, we turned them into Happen Houston. They left their brokerage and formed their own brokerage called Happen Houston. They've now like quadrupled in size.